With the week we had here in Savannah, it was appropriate for us to sing Wade in the Water, wasn't it? I'm sure many of you waded in the water a lot this week. Throughout the Sundays in Lent, most of the biblical text we're talking about refer to water. Even last week, JJ used the text from the book of Amos that said, "Let justice roll like a river, righteousness like a never-failing stream." The water in today's text comes from something called the Pool of Bethesda. This pool was in the city of Jerusalem and had 5 porticos, 5 sections of water that apparently was sourced by an underground spring and perhaps some rainwater also. The name Bethesda means house of mercy. You probably know that because Savannah has the oldest child-caring institution in the entire United States, and it's called Bethesda, and it sure is a house of mercy. It opened in 1740 for the children of the early settlers whose parents had died or whose parents were too sick to take care of them. And if you take a tour of Savannah, the guide will tell you that the orphanage was created or founded by George Whitefield, the great evangelist, and it was. But the guide probably won't tell you who gave him the idea, and that would be John Wesley, of course. Bethesda, house of mercy. Well, why was this pool of water known as the house of mercy? Well, it was believed that the pool was a place of healing, that an experience in the water could make someone better and whole. Kind of like how Warm Springs was for people who had polio in the 1930s and 40s. People from all over would flock to Warm Springs, Georgia, which is close to the Georgia-Alabama line, to get into these natural springs. And the most famous patient, of course, was FDR, President Roosevelt. But here was the deal with the Pool of Bethesda. On occasion, the water in the pool would stir, kind of like the water jets come on in a whirlpool and stir up the water. But this was a natural phenomenon. You couldn't tell when it was going to happen. It was unpredictable. But the belief was that if you were the first person to get in the pool when the water started stirring, you would be the one healed. So you can imagine how popular this place was for people who were chronically ill and disabled. Like water, angels are also a popular theme in the biblical text during Lent. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, we prepared for Lent with the story of Jesus struggling in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights, and then the angels came and ministered to him. Well, at the end of that service 2 weeks ago, we invited the congregation to come forward for prayer and to receive a feather, reminding us to be extra sensitive to the spiritual realm during this time of Lent, and reminding us to be angels ourselves for others, to do at least one random act of kindness each day during Lent. I hope both of those things are going well for you. I know the feather has helped me, and it's reminded me. I keep mine in my car. The text today also spoke of an angel. Do you remember? Did you hear it, Billy? I listened very carefully to the text today, but I didn't hear anything about an angel. No, you didn't. But you would have had we been reading from the King James translation. Apparently, some scribe decided to take it upon himself to share his opinion about how the water got stirred. This is how this part of the story reads in 95% of Bibles, of translations. And you heard it today. In these porticos lay many invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. One man was there who had been ill for 38 years. This is how that section, those two verses, reads in the King James translation, and about the only one, I think. In these porticos lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water. Then whoever stepped in first after the stirring of the water was made well of whatever disease he had. Now a certain man was there who had an infirmity for 38 years. All of that was not in the original text. Is that crazy? Can't you just see this person who was copying the Bible word by word and say, I have an opinion about this. Here's a perfect spot for me to add it. But who knows, maybe he was inspired by God in some way to write it. And when you think about it, when we can say that creation, water, and its stirring is certainly created by one greater than us, whether you call it creator, God, spirit, or angel, or whatever. So this was a legend that was passed down about the angel stirring the water and the first person getting in being healed. And if the water felt anything like a whirlpool does when its jets are on, we can understand why people felt better, right? By the way, in 1956, archaeologists discovered what they are pretty sure about was the pool of Bethesda. You can actually see pictures of it. It's pretty fascinating. It was down deep. Well, one day Jesus shows up at this outdoor nursing home that resembled a hopelessly overcrowded city hospital. For some reason, he's drawn to a certain man who was paralyzed, crippled, who had been there at the pool for 38 years. Talk about a broken healthcare system. Wow, the patient is right there. The patient is right at the pool. All he has to do is get in at the right time. But he obviously has no way of getting in when he needs to get in. It's right there. He's there, but he can't get in. Sound familiar? Makes me think of people who are alone in the hospital or in nursing homes, who have no family or friends who can be there with them to check on them. And the nurses can't be everywhere for everyone all the time. A number of years ago, my mother had major surgery, but got an infection, an abscess. And although she was not feeling well, and although this abscess had formed, she was going to be discharged from the hospital the very next day. I couldn't believe it. And I was with her in a room the night before. It was getting late. She was feeling miserable. And I happened to see a physician walking on that floor. And the physician was part of the group, happened to be part of the group that the surgeon who worked on my mother was in, same group. And I went up to him and explained to him the situation, and he was nice enough to go over to her room to check on her, and he looked at it and said, "Oh my, that needs to be taken out. And you tell Dr. So-and-so that if he doesn't do it, I'll do it." And so the next day, her doctor took it out, and this woman who could not get anything down her stomach started eating everything in the hospital. It was remarkable. What would have happened if I had not been there to see and call the doctor? And by the way, that's one reason to be part of a community of faith, It gives a person more eyes, more ears, more support when he or she may need it. We're the body of Christ. That's what we're here for. This guy has gotten to the pool, so he's so close to being made well, but he can't take the next step. No one is helping him. The system is broken. But sometimes we're part of the problem. Sometimes we enable. We're enablers. We enable ourselves. We can enable others. We can even enable the system. There's the old joke about the man who went to see a psychiatrist. He said, "Doctor, you need to help me and my family. My brother thinks he's a chicken." "Oh, that's most interesting," said the doctor. "How long has this been going on?" "Well, about 5 years," said the man. "5 years," said the doctor. "What took you so long to come see me?" "Well, I would have come sooner," said the man, "but we needed the eggs." He needed the eggs. To be human is to need the eggs. To be human is to be an enabler. To be human is to be ambivalent. We can want and not want at the same time, can't we? We can seek healing and resist it, can drag ourselves right to the edge of the healing pool and then find 1,000 different reasons for not getting in. So we always need to ask ourselves, what is our role with the situation? And what is our role in the solution and in taking action? And so Jesus, who was brilliant at asking questions and making a point with his questions, says to the man, "Do you want to get well?" And I think when Jesus looks at this man who has been languishing by the pool for 38 years, he sees more than sickness. He sees defeat. He sees resignation. He sees psychological and spiritual stagnation. He sees a man whose hope has dwindled, a man whose imagination has atrophied, and to such a point that he can't even articulate what he wants for his body, soul, or future. Do you want to be made well? The man can't even say yes or no. After 38 years of suffering, he doesn't say yes. Instead, he gets defensive. He explains the mechanics of the scarcity at the nursing home. "I have no one to put me into the pool." He makes a compelling case for the cutthroat unfairness of the world. "Each time I try to get there, someone steps down ahead of me." And so the man dodges the question, which isn't a question about the man's circumstances. It's a question about the man's heart, about his identity, about his desires. What do you want? It's not hard to imagine the man thinking that he might just want to play it safe and leave things the way they are, the way they've been for so long. But Jesus doesn't seem to be too interested in playing it safe or in surrounding himself with people who play it safe. He says to the man, "Stand up, take your mat, and walk." Barbara Brown Taylor says, "How will we have it? You can stay where you are. Sit with what is familiar, where all the edges are rounded off so you won't hurt yourself, where you need only concern yourself with what is within your reach. You do not want to make a spectacle of yourself after all, and getting up and walking probably won't work anyway. No sense getting your hopes up. Stay with what is familiar, with what you know. Or you can spring up, cry out, and ask for your heart's desire. Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead, and good riddance to caution, to propriety, to the fear that keeps you down and where you are. Are you willing to see or not? Are you willing to walk or not? Says Barbara Brown Taylor. And so rather than joining the other disabled people in waiting for the healing powers of the pool, Jesus does something unexpected. Instead of helping the man into the water so he could be healed, Jesus asked him to get up, pick up his mat, and walk. And the action Jesus takes is symbolic. It is in line with what scholar Walter Brueggemann describes as the prophetic task to maintain a destabilizing presence so that the system is not equated with reality, so that alternatives are thinkable, so that the absolute claims of the system can be critiqued. You see, even though the paralytic and the other invalids at Bethesda had been taught that the system is the solution, on their small scale, the system, the pool of Bethesda, was a solution only for some at the expense of all the others. By telling the paralytic to get up, pick up his mat, and walk, Jesus taught him to bypass the system and to challenge it. Brueggemann says the goal of the managers and benefactors is to stabilize the system so it is not noticed that it is a system. Jesus, however, taught the paralytic that there is life outside of the system. This past Thursday, my mother had a bad fall. She's 90. So any fall is a bad fall. She fell kind of flat on her face, so she had a bloody nose and bloody lips. We were worried how she would look the next day, but we supplied her with lots of arnica lotion, arnica tablets. Those things worked wonders on her. The face looked great the next day, Friday, which was Friday. The left knee, however, didn't look so good or feel so good. The long-time arthritic knee had gotten pounded on the fall and was swollen, and Mom could not put any weight on it. She couldn't walk. We put all sorts of lotions and balms on it, hoping that it would feel better. There have been occasions when my mother has gotten a cortisone shot in that knee that has greatly helped her. Doesn't have it often, but when she's needs it, she's gotten it, and it's helped. But we were also wondering if there had been a fracture or a torn ligament from the fall. And the ideal scenario for us would be for her to go to her knee doctor, get an x-ray that would hopefully show nothing was broken or torn, and then get her a cortisone shot. My sister called the office, and the earliest they could see her was on the 16th. The woman can't walk. And the earliest they could see her was the 16th. Now, however, she could be seen on Tuesday if she went to their Richmond Hill office. So we put her down for the appointment on Tuesday in Richmond Hill. Now, this office is great in that it has an emergency after-hour service here in Savannah, so that would be the thing to do. But we were told that they do not give shots during those hours. She could get an x-ray, but no shot. We had also thought about going to the ER, of course, the emergency room at the hospital, but those ERs at this time of year are packed. She's 90, just gotten over a bug. We weren't exposing her to the ER during the flu season. So we were hoping that yesterday, Saturday, she would wake up and the knee would feel much better, but it didn't. It was very swollen, still couldn't walk. So my mother, sister, and I had a powwow. Do we wait until Tuesday and go to Richmond Hill, or do we go to the emergency clinic even though they can't give a shot? At least we could get an x-ray and see if there is a break or a tear. But we were also told that you can't go to the emergency clinic and have an appointment. You can only do one or the other, which we thought was crazy. After some discussion, we decided we would go on to the Saturday emergency service. What's the worst thing that could happen? Just turn us away and tell us no. So we drive there, and there is not one single car in the parking lot. We drive by the front door. Everything is dark, shut down. Perhaps there is another entrance for the Saturday emergency service. So we drive around the building 3 times and did not see another open entrance. We did notice that there were 3 or 4 cars parked in the back of the building. We were just about to drive out of the parking lot to go back home because the place was closed when my sister found the website on her phone where it said they were indeed open on Saturdays until 5 o'clock. It was 4:10. So she called the number and someone answered the phone. Someone who said they were indeed there, that they were open. So we went back to the front door that looked dark and closed, and as we got 2 steps from the door, it opened automatically. It opened up into the big lobby where there was no one. I mean, no one there except the receptionist behind the desk. Within 3 minutes, we went to the back, where my mother was then rolled into a different room for x-rays. 7 minutes later, she came back in, followed by a doctor who said, well, there appears to be no tear or broken bones, but you have some cartilage issues that come with age and arthritis. It's obvious that your knee is very swollen, and it's obvious you have fluid on it. What I'd like to do is drain the knee and then give you a cortisone shot. My sister and I looked at each other. What did we just hear? And that's what he did. We were in and out of the office with an x-ray, drained the knee, got a cortisone shot within 25 to 30 minutes. Mom is on the way to recovery. Instead of sitting around day after day, not able to walk, waiting and waiting and waiting for the water to stir. Sometimes you have to get up, pick up your mat, and stir it yourself. Now, it just so happened that this happened this weekend. It just so happened to be a story about someone who couldn't walk. But I hope you realize that the Gospel of John is the gospel of metaphors, and that the message of this story applies to any situation in your life. It applies to any situation that you have wanted to be better, but doesn't seem to be happening. And instead of waiting and waiting and waiting for everything around you to change, it's about you changing. And it's about thinking out of the box and taking action. It's about stirring the water yourself because you are a child of God. You are valuable. You are worth it. So get up. Take up your mat and walk, walk, walk. Amen and amen.
How do you follow that? And that's the question, isn't it? How do you respond? I went to seminary for 3 years, and they taught me some things. And one of the things they taught me was what we do is not worship, it's liturgy. You saved several $1,000s learning that just now. What we do is liturgy, and that word means it's the work of all of us. And it was worth getting the education to be reminded that it's great to listen, it's great to pray, it's wonderful to sing. What are we going to do? What are we going to do together? How do we do the work of God together? Worship, outreach, healing, helping, teaching. We get to do that together, and one of the ways we get to do that is by giving some of what God has given us. I want you to think about what you're going to do about what he said as the offering plates go by and as you walk out into your next week. We'll receive the offering now.